Hi, this is Rabbi Chaim Coffman, and I'm going to make some videos on, short videos, really, on questions that people have sent me that I think are, important questions to go through. Be, other videos coming out on prayer pronunciation, so whatever, try and keep me busy, out of trouble a little bit. So there's a question that someone asked, or one question was about proper rebuke, warning, right? Tochacha, as it's known, versus lashon hara, right? Speaking badly against others, and motzei shem. Can easily one become the other? What's the gather? What are the boundaries? Etc. What constitutes lashon hara and motzei shem? So this is probably a little more detailed answer. But lashon hara rechilus, right, is gossip. Right? You're not allowed to speak badly against someone, even if it's true. Now, there are certain conditions where a person would be allowed to speak against someone else. Some of those conditions are you have to have heard it, yourself. You can't exaggerate. You can't change anything. It has to have a purpose. And even if it's something that's well known, or let's say better, that everybody knows, right? I'm not allowed to repeat it for no reason, right? Still, this is one of the novelties of lashon hara, in the sense that, people will say, well, if I know it's true, and again, for argument's sake, let's just say it is true, right? If I know it's true, how am I allowed to repeat it? Right? It still should be forbidden if there's no purpose in repeating it. So if someone, let's say causes damage, and he's caused damage before, you're allowed. The person's a motzei. The person, is a damage causer, for lack of a better word. So therefore, I'm allowed to warn people, against this person. But again, you have to know firsthand, right? You have to, obviously there has to be a purpose here. Person, running around causing damage, etc. Because I've heard a number of people say, well, I can't repeat that, it's lashon hara. Let's say, for example, in the shidduch. Right? So someone gets information, and it's whatever, let's say it's damaging information. They know information about, about a son, a daughter, whatever the case is, and they don't reveal it. Now, let's say, for argument's sake, that child has mental illness. Okay, they may be dealing with it, they're on medication, but that is something that has to be told to the other side. So someone will say, but it's lashon hara, I can't say lashon hara, or someone else. Even if someone else knows, say, well, if they ask me about the child, I'm not allowed to, to say lashon hara. So now, in this case, it depends, right? It depends when the information is given over. If it's a medical thing, right? If it's a medical thing, then it doesn't have to be given over straight away, right? You let them go out, all things being equal. You let them see if they like each other. If they don't like each other, fine, right? Nothing lost. If they do like each other, they've gone out a few times, right? Then, then you can give over the information, right? But, there is pertinent information, that has to be given. Otherwise, that information is not given over. A person can, certainly get messed up. I know of a few stories where, someone got married and finds out that that their spouse is manic depressive. Oh, sorry, we didn't mention that before, and that they're on medication, it's lashon hara. What do you mean it's lashon hara? It just messes this person up now, right? So you have to know when, it's permissible, to reveal certain things. I'm not gonna, go through all the, all the laws of lashon hara, when you're allowed to repeat, when you're not allowed to repeat. Person has to be careful, right? We have to guard our tongues. That there's no question. So lashon hara, right? We normally define as gossip, right? So, so again, repeating something, even if everybody knows it, or repeating it even not in front of a lot of people. There are specific conditions that the Chaim brings down in his book on the laws of, lashon hara, that are specific conditions when you're allowed to say something over. So you have to be very careful, because a person can transgress more than 30 prohibitions, in one shot. So, So here we're talking about something that is gossip. Now, what about motzei shemra? What is motzei shemra? Motzei shemra is known, is known as a lie, right? Or let's say better, is known as libel, right? You're causing a bad name to someone else, right? It says in the book of Deuteronomy, right? In the book of Deuteronomy, where it mentions chapter 22, verses 13 and 14, right? It mentions about a groom, right, who lies, claiming the virgin he thought was married wasn't, right? Or, she lies and says, she was a virgin, let's say better, that she lies, says she was a virgin, and finds out that, that she wasn't. So here it's really libel, it's really, causing a bad name when the negative claim isn't true, right? So that's a specific definition. So in this case, person gets married, finds out his wife's not a virgin, and she claims she was. It's a lie, right? So then he starts, saying that, he's lied to whatever, and he starts saying all these negative things. That's libel. Now again, what he's saying may be true, but he's lied to, right? So he's causing this thing to give her a bad name. Now, he's not allowed to do that, right? Even though he got messed up, he's certainly not allowed to do that. So that's not that. That's a specific thing. Lashon hara may, it may be true, may be untrue, right? Even if it, lashon hara, even if it is true, right? I'm still not allowed to repeat it. So in this case, by motzei shemra, it's certainly a lie, right? It's defamation, right? Defamation. Certainly, the person was duped, right? Then he starts saying, things, character assassination. Now again, even in this case, let's say what the person's telling is true. He got duped. This woman lied to him. That give him right to, publish it all over the place, right? He has to pay a knas. He has to pay a fine, right, for doing so, because even though he's lied to, there are ways to go about it. And that's the whole problem with lashon hara in general, on social media, because, people speak and, say all kinds of negative things, and, it's never good to answer unless you can answer in a way, in a way where, first of all, you're not going to speak badly against someone else. And then they're not going to come and, even if you don't speak badly, but they're not going to come and then jump all over you. So all the more so, you have to be careful, right? And what you answer to someone else. Because if they take it the wrong way, even if you didn't intend it that way, and then they start saying negative things against you, then, if it's a Jew, right, they transgress the laws of lashon hara, no question, right? But then millions of people see it, right? So then it magnifies even more. So really, the original question, right, which I didn't really answer, was about giving rebuke, right? Now, giving rebuke, it says that there's an obligation for a Jew to give rebuke. Now, the problem is that in this generation, we don't know how to give rebuke, right? So, even if a person saw someone do something wrong, and they take him aside, they don't do it in public, right? Because then you're going to embarrass them in public. You don't do it in public. And, you take him aside and try and say, listen, I saw what you did, and, this, again, you have to have first-hand knowledge, can't be hearsay, right? You want to get, I'm not saying you're jumping on the person to catch him in the act, but you know what this person did, right? So, you pull him aside, and, you give him mussar. You give him rebukes. How could you do that? You lied, you did this, you did that, right? You got to do it in a way where it's going to be accepted, right? So today, there is no din of rebuke today. Now, there are times, in general, where a person will have to stand up, and make a protest, right, for certain things being done. Obviously, you need your local Orthodox rabbi, right, to tell you when that is or whatever. You can't make those decisions on your own. You can't say, I'm going to fight God's battles because God needs me, and I'm going to go and trash this person, whatever. It doesn't give you a right to do that. Even the person's a kofir, he's a blasphemer, he goes, he doesn't care, and he goes against what God says, and, denies the Torah and the authority of the Torah and all that. True, he's a Russia, he's evil, right? But, but again, you're not going to confront them, certainly in public. There's going to be a war. There's no mitzvah in that. At the same time, if we could give rebuke like the Chaim, I'll tell you the following story. Right, there was the Chaim heard there was a student in the yeshiva, in his yeshiva that smoked on Shabbos, and the student was leaving, and Chaim found out, and before he left, he wanted to speak to the student, and the student comes in, and the Chaim says, doesn't say anything. Right, he grabs his hand, he starts crying, and he says Shabbos. And he holds his hand very tight, he's crying even more, and he says Shabbos, and that was it. Right, that was all the Chaim said. So the person that, this student, even though he left the yeshiva, never broke Shabbos again. Right, but, because of, how the Chaim handled it. Other people said, how could you have done it? Whatever, started yelling and screaming and, or even trying to have a discussion, making the person feel bad, whatever it is, right, in order to try and get that person, to change their ways. If we could be like the Chaim, then I agree. Then we should be able to give tochacha, we should be able to give, rebuke. But we're not. We're not. Now, again, there's kind of a fine line. Person sees someone do something wrong, or that they did something wrong, right? How do you approach it? Because you're going to say, hey, you just, say, Rabbi, you just got through saying that we don't know how to give rebuke. You're right. But someone caused me damage. Whatever, you have to confront the situation. You have to rectify the situation. Right? It could be spiritual damage, could be physical damage, whatever. Whatever it is. But even though there's no law of rebuke today, right? We don't know how to give rebuke. Regardless of that, does not mean that you just stand around and do nothing, right? Again, sometimes we're going to need to protest, right? There were protests, this week or last week, and on Shabbos against desecration of Shabbos, right? For this Eurovision, thing. So people are going to say, oh, he protested, what's it going to do? It's going to stop them from desecrating Shabbos, but you're in the palace of the king. Right? You're in the palace of the king. If you're in the palace of the king, you can't let that go on. Right? Unnoticed. Where, God's going to say, oh, you had an obligation to protest, you didn't protest. Right? What's the matter? What's the matter? Shabbos, Shabbos isn't that important. So we have to know when to do it. We have to know how to do it. Again, the mitzvah of rebuke's really going out the window. A person's got to be very, very careful, right? There are many times where we want to scream out. You got to speak softly, right? You have to know who you're dealing with as well, what they can handle, But I guess that I'll answer it that way. That when it comes to rebuke today, it almost doesn't exist. A person has a hard enough time, dealing with the fact, that, dealing with their kids, right? Dealing with the kids. People say they're afraid to rebuke their kids, for the sole reason that they're afraid they'll go off, and they're afraid that they'll go sour. Doesn't a parent have an obligation? Shouldn't a parent have an obligation to rebuke their kids, when they do something wrong? Otherwise, they're not educating them. That's true. That's true. And a parent that does not rebuke their child when they do something wrong. Obviously, you have to know how to do it. If you don't rebuke the child thinks he can do anything, and the parent doesn't care. But the problem is, the parent's afraid to say anything because, a child can say, oh, you're going to take this away, you're going to do that? Well, guess what? I'm going off the derech. I'm going to do what I want. I'm not going to keep Torah. I'm going to embarrass you. Okay, that's, that's their choice. But in this generation, it's Teflon generation. So parents are afraid to rebuke their kids, but their kids need to be rebuked. They do something wrong, they need to be rebuked. You have to, again, you have to praise them like 9 times out of 10, right? You have to give them, proper encouragement. When they do something wrong, they have to be told in a way, not only they can understand, but they have to be told in a way that they're not going to do it again. Right? So I think that answers the question, of proper rebuke versus lashon hara, and motzei shem. So anyone has any questions, you can send it to me at on Facebook, Beyond Orthodox Conversion in Judaism. You can send me an email, Rabbi Chaim Coffman at gmail.com, RABBICHAIMCOFFMAN at gmail.com. Thanks for listening.